I've spent the last 20 years of my life designing kitchens, and I have 50 tips that I want to share with you to help you do this successfully. Keep the things you love about your old kitchen in your new kitchen. Your old kitchen has things that you do love about it. It's not a complete mess. There are some things in there that you do enjoy about it. Make sure you consider those things in your renovation or in your new build so that you can have that similar experience in your new kitchen. Symmetry matters at eye level. Don't worry about trying to be symmetrical with top and bottom cabinets. Really focus on what's at eye level and making that symmetrical. Usually base cabinets are hidden because of other items that are in the way, maybe an island, maybe furniture, maybe a return wall. You don't have to worry too much about the symmetry of base cabinets. Focus on what you can see in your kitchen and make that symmetrical if symmetry matters to you. Sink location should come first. When you're planning out a design, when you start the basics of laying out a kitchen, make sure you understand where the sink is going to be located and place that in your plan, because then you can use that location to get other measurements for other things that you're going to put in that space. Your sink needs plumbing, and that plumbing is probably going to be in a certain location anyway. So start with your sink and then work out from there. Usability over size. A small kitchen that is more usable, more functional, is much better off than a large kitchen that is not accessible or usable. So prioritize the usability of your space no matter the size of your kitchen. Don't worry about if you have a small kitchen or a large kitchen. Just worry about making it as functional as it can be for the space that you have to work with. This will make your kitchen much better to work in, and you won't be worried about the size of it. Don't sacrifice function for aesthetics. For years now, we've been prioritizing aesthetics because we want to get that Instagram-worthy kitchen picture. But your kitchen isn't a picture. It's a workable room that needs to be functional. Design your kitchen to be functional, and then make it aesthetically pleasing after the fact. You can have both of those things, but oftentimes, if you just prioritize aesthetics first, you can end up with a beautiful mess. Get multiple layouts. I say this all the time, and I mean it. Make sure that you have a designer that is going to give you a few different options for how your kitchen can be laid out. They don't need to be competing options necessarily. One can be a horrible option and one can be great, but it gives you clarity of mind to make the right decisions for your kitchen because you can see what works and what doesn't work. And sometimes what happens is you see something you never thought of before because they designed it in a different way. And this might be better than what you were thinking of in the first place. So get multiple options. You'll be much better off and much more confident in your kitchen renovation. This goes without saying, but you do need to measure accurately. Whether you're doing it or a designer or a contractor, it is absolutely non-negotiable that you get accurate measurements. This just means taking a little bit of extra time to get accurate measurements, making sure you're not reading your tape measure upside down, drawing out a floor plan that indicates all the different parts of your kitchen and how it's measured, so that when you take those measurements either to a design program or to a designer, just very simple drawings with accurate measurements will go a long, long way. While your kitchen is a cohesive unit, think of it as separate task zones that need to be designed individually. And then design those zones to work as optimally as possible while tying them all together into the workflow of the kitchen. Ignore the kitchen triangle. So the idea of the kitchen triangle, while it is a good starting point, is not the end goal for your kitchen. Don't be afraid to blur the lines a little bit when it comes to the kitchen triangle. Don't ignore the kitchen triangle. Just blindly ignoring the kitchen triangle is a mistake as well. It does serve a purpose. It is a great starting point, and it allows you to create some efficiency in the kitchen. It's all about efficiency, not necessarily the work triangle. So use it as a starting point and don't abandon it completely, but think about efficiency in how you use your kitchen. Your fridge is the most used appliance because everybody in your home can use the fridge. Whether you're 95 years old or you're 5 years old, likely you can access the fridge. That doesn't mean you're cooking a full meal or you're using the kitchen to its full capacity. So putting the fridge in a location in your design that makes sense for everybody in the household is usually a smart move. It keeps them away from the workflow of the cook, and it's also accessible and easy to get at from everywhere else in the home. Allow for lots of accessibility in your kitchen. Just because you have the capacity of storage, you have lots of counter space, you have lots of storage opportunities, doesn't mean they're easy to access. Making them easy to access makes your kitchen more functional. It can be as simple as a pull-out, a drawer, some kind of lift-up, pull-down, pull-out system. Whatever you can to make your kitchen functional, make it accessible, is a really good move. Never forget your clearances. In all the things that you're doing in your kitchen, trying to get the perfect layout, the perfect island, the perfect corner cabinet, the perfect pantry, don't forget about the perfect clearances. It is important to really consider how you're using the space, how many of you are using the space, and the amount of clearance you need, to use the space. Use the IKEA Kitchen Planner. You don't have to buy IKEA cabinets. The IKEA Kitchen Planner is a free tool online that you can use to help facilitate a kitchen layout even if you're not using their cabinets. Just use the planner to get an idea of what your space will look like when it's designed. Yes, you have to use their sizes, but there's a good overlap between their sizes and everyone else's, so you can get a really nice visual perspective of what your kitchen can look like. For 90% of the kitchens out there, the IKEA Kitchen Planner is definitely a tool that you'll want to check out. Always allow for specific use cabinets. This is in the planning stage. You may have a mixer that you want on a lift. You may have some kind of utensil or utility drawer or pullout that you want to include. Trash and recycling also belong in this conversation. Specific use cabinets that are only used for those one things. Make sure you allow for those and you think through those in the planning stage. Vent outside. Do not recirculate your vent hood if at all possible. It's a great idea to remove all of that excess moisture from your space. Your microwave should be at the most convenient height for you. That can be a little bit different for everybody. I recommend your microwave be at waist to chest height. The best location for this could be in a pantry, could just be on a countertop, or in a wall cabinet that's a little bit lower so that you can access it easier. Drawers are better than pullouts. Usually. When possible, put in a drawer bank, but sometimes having a pullout is a really good option because they are shallower, meaning you can grab what's on them easier because you don't have the box of the drawer in the way. It's great to have a cabinet with some pullouts for small appliances or pots. Use refrigerator panels, please. Don't stick your fridge underneath a fridge cabinet with nothing coming down the sides. Frame it in, make it look like it's built in. It's much more aesthetically pleasing, and it does serve some function. One, it's a great return wall for countertop to butt into, and it protects things from falling in behind the back of the fridge. Put lighting where you need it. This really comes into play with pot lighting in the ceiling. Oftentimes these are placed in not so strategic locations. They're more meant to be aesthetically pleasing so that when you look up at the ceiling, it looks like this runway pattern, but that's generally never where the light needs to be in a kitchen. So make sure you design your lighting to be in the places where it's needed and save those runway patterns for living rooms and dining rooms. You don't need that in the kitchen. The less shadows you create in your kitchen, the better and the more functional it's going to be. Choose a countertop that's going to suit the way you use your kitchen. If you are someone who's a clanger and a banger, then you might not want to have something like porcelain. But if you're someone who puts scalding hot pots down on your countertop, then you may want a porcelain or ultra compact surface. So pick a countertop surface that checks all the boxes for you. Don't just go with the run-of-the-mill stuff that you see everywhere else. Now, I'm not saying don't go with quartz. I'm only saying make sure you look at all the options and find a countertop that suits your particular needs and the style that you want, and it does the thing that you want it to do. If you want to be able to put something scalding hot on it, then pick a countertop that can do that. If you want to be able to hit it with a sledgehammer, then pick a countertop that can handle that. Shallow storage can definitely increase the capacity of your kitchen. Being shallow doesn't mean it's not useful. In fact, it's even more useful because you don't need to include any drawer systems. Everything is right at arm's reach. You don't have to dig in the back of a cabinet. So if you have a place in your kitchen where you can include base shallow storage or a full pantry of shallow storage, it can be a great asset to your kitchen. Know the different types of countertop areas. You'll have landing area, you'll have prep surface, you'll have storage, and you'll have service. Know where these are located in your kitchen and design it accordingly. You definitely need landing area by your appliances, but you also need some kind of dedicated prep zone, and it helps if those two things don't overlap. Plus, you're likely going to be serving in your kitchen, and you probably are going to store some things on your countertop. Having these things allocated and figured out in your design is really important. Always expect some issues to arise in the process. Very rarely in my 20 years have I done a full kitchen renovation start to finish that never had any issue. There are always little issues that come up. You should expect them. Just be aware that they're out there and they're looking for you. Allow room in your budget. Because there's issues, it's important that you allow at least 15% of your total budget to deal with some of the things that you need to deal with. Whether you're ordering new things, more things, other things, changing layouts, there's always some reason that you have to spend a little bit more money, and allowing for it in the beginning is definitely going to help you mentally with anxiety and stress in the whole project because there's so many things happening. And it'll also just help you financially because you were ready for it and it's not going to be that big of a strain. Designed for you unless you're selling the home. But if you're not selling the house and you're going to live there for a long period of time, design that kitchen to suit your functional needs, not somebody else's. If you need a dishwasher raised, then raise it. If you need a countertop lowered, then lower it. If you don't want any wall cabinets, then don't put any wall cabinets. But make sure you design it for your needs and not somebody else's down the road who's going to buy the home. Design that kitchen to suit your needs. If you have room for a wall oven, do it. Having your oven off the floor is a great idea. Much easier to access. Definitely not doable for everybody, especially if you have a smaller kitchen with just not enough real estate and wall space. But if you do have a little bit of a larger space and you're thinking about adding a wall oven, just go ahead, add the wall oven. You'll definitely thank me later. Pick trends that you can easily change. Pick things you can easily get rid of when you need to. I mean, unless you're not into trends, then it doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. But if you're one of those people who really likes to get on the bandwagon of certain things, just be aware that when those things are no longer popular, you'll have to get rid of them as well. And it shouldn't have to cause you to do a whole new kitchen renovation to do that. Consider toe kick drawers for extra storage. Yes, they're on the floor. Yes, it can be a little bit dirty. You don't have to have them everywhere, but in a few cabinets, it might make sense to have a toe kick drawer or a toe kick step stool, which can be a real game changer for a lot of people. Just integrate it into the kitchen. Plan your corner storage so you get exactly what you want beforehand. Oftentimes, what can happen and has happened in the past is you just throw in a corner cabinet and you deal with it later. You maybe put a lazy Susan in there or something. Maybe that's fine for you, but maybe it's not. And you should have thought through what you're going to store in that corner. Maybe a blind corner with some kind of corner system, maybe blocking it off, maybe a corner pantry, maybe a corner anything. But the idea is to know beforehand all the different options that are available to you and then pick the one that really is going to suit the way you use the space. Have your kitchen installed by a professional. I highly recommend having your kitchen installed by a pro because 1, you'll likely get a warranty. 2, they'll likely do a great job because they've done this before. And while installing a kitchen is not rocket science, it is an art form and it needs to be done in a particular way, especially when it comes to the finishes. And the finishes really make or break a kitchen installation in terms of it looking visually like really nice or looking like, who did this? So make sure that if you're installing the kitchen yourself, that you have a little bit of experience doing it, or at least you don't mind that the outcome might not look as pristine as if an installer did it. Hire an installer, you will be happy that you did. Work with a designer or someone who has a fresh perspective on your space. Sometimes what happens with homeowners is that we are looking at our kitchen, we want to renovate it, we have a hard time visualizing it, we can't see it any other particular way, and what has happened in the past is you just redesign the same kitchen. You can't think outside the box. It's just because you're so used to seeing it this particular way. So someone with a fresh set of eyes, a designer, or someone else who just has a knack for that type of thing can be a really good asset in looking at your space. They can give you fresh perspective, some design options, and open up a whole new world of functionality for your kitchen. To the best of your ability, plan out where everything's going to be stored in your new space. Yes, this is a little bit of grunt work and legwork beforehand, but you want to avoid moving into the new kitchen, putting things away, but not really knowing where anything's going, and then realizing, oh, I should have thought where I'm going to put this particular thing, because now it doesn't fit in any of these drawers. I have to put it over here, but I'd like to have it here. If you think through those scenarios beforehand and actually know what you're storing and where it's going to be stored, when you move into the kitchen, it'll be a much more pleasant experience because you have some insight already on where things go. If you have seating on an island or a peninsula, make sure it fits your lap. Don't just go by some random measurement of 12 inches or 15 inches or whatever the measurement you're told by a designer. Make sure that you measure how big you are, how much space you need, not only the depth, but the height, and then plan accordingly for that. You don't want to be sitting at your island with your knees into the back of the peninsula or the island panel. You don't want to be banging them on some kind of overhang support bracket. Really plan through the depth that you need to be comfortable when you're sitting at that island. Be careful with open shelves. They can be a nuisance because they get grimy and dirty. They need to be curated usually because they're just intrinsically kind of a mess. So be cautious. I'm not saying don't use open shelves in your kitchen, but just be careful where you put them and how you're using them. And if you have this kind of romanticized idea about open shelves, don't. They can be just very dirty and messy. So just know that going forward. And if you don't mind curating them and cleaning them and keeping them neat and tidy, then by all means go for it. But just because you see them in a picture somewhere doesn't mean they're the right thing for you. Just be careful. Invest in good drawer and door hinge systems. What really makes that kitchen worthy, in my opinion, is the quality of those hardware items. Because kitchen doors and drawers get opened a lot over its lifetime, and those hinge and hardware systems need to operate optimally for as long as possible. If you're building a home, design the kitchen first and then design the home around the kitchen. Don't do it the opposite way, which is 99% of what happens. Do it this way, you'll be much happier that you did, because you get the kitchen that you want in the house that you want instead of the house that you want with a kitchen you have to deal with. This is where the kitchen goes, and I have to design it in these wall spaces, but it's not the kitchen that I wanted. Design your kitchen first, then design your home around that. You'll be much happier that you did. Pullouts in pantries are an absolute must. Don't have a pantry cabinet with shelves. You're only asking for trouble. Invest in some pullouts. If it's the only accessibility you invest in your kitchen and you have a cabinet pantry, make sure you invest in pullouts for that pantry, especially the bottom half of that cabinet where you have a lot of potential for storage, but you also want to make it easy to access. It's okay that some small appliances exist and live their entire lifetime on your countertop. That's where they're used, and it's much easier to use them there and store them there than to go digging for them in a cabinet somewhere, no matter how accessible you make it. If it's easier to use your blender on the countertop and you don't want to be digging for it, just leave it there. It's a countertop appliance for a reason, and it'll be fine on your countertop. So just plan for those areas. Okay, I promised you 50 tips from my 20 years experience, and I'm on the road editing this video realizing I only wrote down 40. So the rest of these are coming from my hotel room, but they're still very valuable tips. Consider the upkeep of your kitchen. Choose materials that you are comfortable with cleaning and are going to have a longer lifespan. It's also helpful to be aware of the warranty of the particular items that you're purchasing. It's great to have a beautiful functioning kitchen, but it's also very important to have something that lasts a long time and that is easy to maintain. Plan for safety. Safety is definitely not talked about enough when we discuss functional kitchens, but it is very important that you consider how you're using the kitchen and the safety measures in place to avoid people getting burned or accidents happening due to doors being opened that interact with one another and creating improper clearances or fire hazards. It's very important to be aware of how safe your kitchen is when you're in the designing phase. Plan out what's going to happen underneath your sink. That cabinet in a lot of kitchens gets neglected. Determine all the hardware that's going to be placed. The type of sink that you're going to use is also going to help you determine how you're going to organize this space. And start planning out what you're going to do in that sink cabinet to make sure that it is also accessible and efficient. And when you can, add protection to the bottom of that cabinet so that if it does get wet, it will not ruin your sink base, which would be a real nuisance to replace. Don't feel that you need to be stuck with shaker. Shaker style doors are very popular and give you a very timeless look. Now, yes, there's a lot of shaker doors out there, and every major cabinet company has a line of shaker style doors. I get it. Maybe they're getting overdone. However, the shaker style door is still very popular, and there's been modern enhancements on that door with thin shakers and other little details that can make the shaker door still something very trendy and very nice in a kitchen. It's going to be around for a long time, and it's going to be okay. Speaking of things that will be around for a long time, white kitchens are still the most popular kitchen style that consumers choose. Now, I know that many of you have an opinion about white cabinets. I get it. And I have an opinion too. I happen to love them. So don't be afraid to choose white cabinets. It's a timeless look. However, for all of you out there, many of you in fact, that are like, I'm just so sick of white, I totally hear you. This is your opportunity to bring life into your kitchen, bring color, bring your personality, bring character, bring texture. All that stuff, now's your opportunity. But white is a good platform to build upon. Be mindful how you are going to hinge your doors. This only really matters in a few particular areas, one being your corners, but also the cabinets around your range. It is quite nice when you can open a cabinet door away from your face, instead of opening it into your face and going around it to get whatever you have to get, and then closing the door. Sometimes this is possible and sometimes it isn't, but when it is possible, it should be something that you are aware of, so that the doors are hinged to be the most convenient. As well with corner-based doors, these doors should be hinged so that they're not opening into appliances if there's an appliance next to the corner. So if you have your range next to your 90-degree corner-based cabinet, make sure that door opens away from the range. This next one probably should be the very first tip I talked about, because it is very, very important when it comes to kitchen design and kitchen functionality. Declutter your space. Get rid of some of that stuff. There's probably things in your kitchen that you don't use very often, if ever. It's time to purge when it's kitchen design time. You will thank yourself when you move into this new kitchen and you have lots of space to store the things that you need every single day. Here's the way I think about kitchen design and decluttering. Design your kitchen to use the things that you use every single day. The obvious stuff, your forks and your knives and your plates and your glasses, your mug, and the cookware that you use every single day, the appliances, all that stuff. The next tier after this are designing for the things you use weekly. A little less important than the daily use items, but they're still important. Then after that, the things you use every once in a while, maybe every 2 weeks or even once a month. Obviously, those items are still important, but way less important than the daily use items. And then the fourth tier are the things that you rarely ever use. Don't prioritize your kitchen design for the things you barely ever use. Those are things that can be stored elsewhere, and those are things that maybe will be tossed out in the declutter stage. This is the way I like to think about processing the things I need and the things I can get rid of. Custom cabinets are great, but they're not the only option. And don't feel bad if you can't go custom. You can do a lot with ready-to-assemble cabinets or off-the-shelf stock cabinets from your local big box store. Even if you just use them the way they're made to be used, you can design a lot of kitchens to be very functional and beautiful with just these standard size cabinets. And there's lots of hacks available and ideas that you can implement to increase the usability of these stock style cabinets. Custom is great because you can design it exactly the way you want it, but it might not be for everybody, and that's okay. You can still have an awesome kitchen without custom. I mentioned earlier about getting multiple design layouts, but you should also get multiple quotes so that you can compare apples to apples and be sure that you're actually comparing apples to apples. What can easily happen in the kitchen industry is you are comparing apples to oranges. Yes, they're both kitchens, they're both fruits, but there's a vast difference between some companies that you don't even really realize. The layout might be the same, but the bones of what's in that kitchen, how they're constructed, what they're made out of, all the different features that are included are going to bring the price up or bring the price down. You'll want to know that, so get multiple quotes so you can really get an idea of what you're paying for. And this is your kitchen, so it's your rules. Don't be afraid to smudge the lines on a few things if it means getting the kitchen that you really want. Now, I'm not saying to, not have any clearances or just do something that's really off the wall crazy. Make sure you follow all the guidelines, follow my advice, follow the advice of other creators out there. But at the end of the day, it's your kitchen and you should be the one who has the deciding factor on everything that happens in it. So this is not to say just go and just blindly throw cabinets on the wall and just whatever. But just know that you do have the final say. And if you do get kickback from someone like a designer like me or anyone else, that's okay. Listen to their advice. But at the end of the day, make sure you're okay with all these decisions and you're really happy with it. And one of the best things you can do for your kitchen is get a one-on-one consultation from me. This is tip number 50. You get a second set of unbiased eyes to look at your plan, to answer your questions, to answer your concerns, so that you can have confidence that you're getting the kitchen design that you absolutely will love for a long time. There's a link in the description below, and I hope to chat with you soon. And if you're wondering about the type of sink you're going to throw into this new kitchen, this video is going to tell you all my thoughts about kitchen sinks, where to place them, where not to place them, the type of sinks, everything to do with sinks, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.